Good morning, I'm Maiki Oreta, and you're watching Business 360, where we break down the numbers, connect the dots, and give you the developments and the insights you need to navigate, adapt, and lead. Let's dive right in. The headlines. The government budget deficit narrows slightly to 1.51 trillion pesos in 2024, signaling a step toward fiscal stability. But what does this mean for our economy? ABS-CBN Corporation makes a bold move, agreeing to sell a portion of its prime Quezon City property to Ayala Land for 6.2 billion pesos. What does this mean for both firms? Elsewhere, the U.S. and Britain are negotiating a bilateral trade agreement focused on advanced technology, a potential game changer that could revolutionize global innovation, boost trade, and transform markets worldwide. All that and more coming up. First, let's take a look at how financial markets performed overnight. Over on Wall Street, the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq end sharply lower on Thursday, heavily weighed down by a slump in chipmaker NVIDIA. NVIDIA's quarterly report failed to rekindle Wall Street's AI rally, as a weaker than expected forecast for gross margin overshadowed its upbeat revenue outlook. Investors remain cautious, focusing on data that points to a cooling U.S. economy.
The good news is they beat Wall Street estimates fairly handily, in fact, but it wasn't necessarily the blowout report that investors had been either hoping for or accustomed to. So when we look at the good news, it's a little bit of a mixed bag.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average was lower by 0.5%, then S&P 500 down by 1.6%, and the Nasdaq Composite down by 2.71%. Now, in Europe, markets are mixed. The UK's FTSE up by 0.3%, Germany's DAX sharply lower, down by 1.1%, and France's CAC 40 lower by 0.5%. Here at home, the government's budget deficit narrows slightly to 1.51 trillion pesos in 2024, down from 1.51 trillion pesos in 2023. Data from the Bureau of the Treasury shows that while this is a sign of some improvement, it still exceeds the 1.48 trillion peso deficit ceiling set by the Development Budget Coordination Committee. The narrower deficit indicates that government spending is easing, but it remains above revenue collections. Revenue collections jumped nearly 16% to 4.42 trillion pesos, surpassing the target of 4.27 trillion pesos, thanks to strong non-tax revenues. This means that while there is some improvement, ongoing financial pressures could still hurt investor confidence and slow down economic growth in the Philippines. Now, the Marcos administration is expanding its affordable rice program nationwide, partnering with local government units to sell rice at lower prices. The government has ramped up palay procurement from local farmers this harvest season through the National Food Authority, enabling rice sales at 33 pesos per kilo. The program is also implemented in collaboration with the Department of Agriculture and Food Terminal Corporation. This move is a major boost for the Philippine economy. By making rice more affordable, the government is supporting local farmers, enhancing food security, and helping to lower inflation pressures. Ultimately, cheaper rice means a lower cost of living for millions of Filipinos, strengthening our economic foundation. The Philippines expects an inflow of foreign investors as it's removed from the gray list of the Financial Action Task Force, or FATF, the Paris-based global watchdog for money laundering and terrorist financing. The organization announced its decision to lift increased monitoring for dirty money nearly 4 years after Manila was added. Sujin Kim has the details.
The Philippines is sending a strong signal to the global investment community about the country's readiness to attract more foreign investors. Following the Philippines' delisting from the Financial Action Task Force, or FATF's gray list, the country is now in a stronger position to attract foreign direct investments, as investors face fewer financial restrictions and lower regulatory risks.
Pag-exit natin, this would be a positive catalyst for investors. As a result of that, they will lease infrastructure, engage in construction, hire our local people, and spur more spending. Consumption-driven economy na naman tayo eh.
They expect the increase in the foreign direct investments, FDIs, as well as possible credit rating upgrade I cannot talagang straightforwardly tell you na the amounts, but it will be substantial. It will be in the billions.
The country's inclusion in the gray list had made international transactions more difficult, resulting in slower remittance processing, delayed investments, and increased compliance costs for businesses. SEC Chairman Emilio Aquino says he expects companies that postponed private equity raises and expansion plans to pick up where they left off, supporting stronger capital inflows into the economy. The exit from the gray list is expected to spur further growth for banks and financial institutions, as well as fintech companies.
Marami kasi pumapasok, mga possible, mga venture capitalists who are interested, private equity firms. They will bring in their money so long kasi sabi nga nila, hindi nga high-risk investment destination. Now with the removal, it will make our country attractive.
Aquino expects this to also particularly benefit the industries of real estate, infrastructure, and business process outsourcing, sectors that rely heavily on foreign investors and international clients.
Because they're also catering to a global audience or clientele. So they don't want to deal with, countries or jurisdictions na medyo alanganin. In our case, we meet the international or global standards against the fight of money laundering and countering terrorism financing.
Moving forward, the government is committed to ensuring that the country remains compliant with global financial standards, preventing a return to the gray list. Sujin Kim, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
The Philippine Deposit Insurance Corporation expands insurance coverage for bank deposits, doubling the protection for depositors' funds. In a memorandum dated February 27, the PDIC increases the maximum insurance coverage to 1 million pesos per depositor per bank, twice the previous limit of 500,000 pesos. This new coverage takes effect on March 15th. This move means greater security for individuals and businesses, which builds confidence in our financial system and supports a stable economy. ABS-CBN Corporation agrees to sell 30,000 square meters of its prime Quezon City property to Ayala Land for 6.2 billion pesos. As part of the deal, the transaction includes the main building, broadcast center, transmitter, and even the Dolphy Theater. The Lopez-led network confirms that 1.4 hectares of the ABS-CBN compound will remain, where it will consolidate its offices, studio, and production facilities. ABS-CBN says that the proceeds will be used to pay off its bank debts. This move is a sign of asset restructuring in a challenging media landscape. Members of the state-run Pag-ibig Fund are set to breathe a sigh of relief as they prepare to enjoy higher dividends. The fund earned nearly 56 billion pesos in total dividends in 2024, marking the largest payout in its 44-year history. As a result, dividend rates for regular savings have climbed to nearly 7%, while the modified Pag-ibig 2 or MP2 savings rate has raised to over 7%. This means more money is being added to the savings accounts of Pag-ibig members. For the Philippines, this is a significant boost, enhancing individual savings, reducing financial stress, and supporting a sturdy economic foundation that benefits the entire nation. We're taking a quick break. Please stay with us as we dive deep into the numbers and the narratives that matter most to your bottom line.
From the filing of candidacies until the last ballot is counted, your newest trusted news source, B&C, the Bilyonaryo News Channel, will be at the forefront to guide your decisions and guard your vote. Tune in to B&C's Election 2025 special coverage.
Welcome back. Let's take a look at how bourses in Asia are faring in early trade following Wall Street sell-off last night. Right now, the Nikkei 225 is lower sharply, down by 2.9%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index down by 2%, and the Shanghai Composite lower by 0.5%, and Singapore Straits Times Index lower by 0.3%. Here at home, let's take a look at the Philippine Stock Exchange. As of 10:13 this morning, the main gauge is in the red, lower by 0.8% to 60.75. The broader all shares index down as well, down by 0.5% to 36.38. As for the sub indices, I'm seeing a sea of red. Everything is just in the red right now. The financials, industrial, holding firms, services, mining and oil counters are all in the red, with the holding firms and mining and oil counters lower by over 1%. Now, at the foreign exchange market, the peso opened weaker at 57.98 against the greenback from its previous close of 57.91. Today, we take a closer look at the Philippine stock market to understand where we are and where we're headed, given how Trump's tariffs are shaping investor sentiment. Our guest today is Edmund Lee, President and CEO of Calum Trading Institute, who offers insights on investing in 2025. Hi, Edmund.
Hi, Dee. How are you?
I'm good. Okay, good to have you with us. Lots to digest. First off, Edmund, how would you assess the current state of the stock market, given today's economic landscape and the impact of Trump's tariffs on foreign direct investments?
Actually, coming into the year, we were slightly more positive about what was happening because we felt that many of the things, especially from the tariff end, were already priced in. Fast forward, going into January 2025, actually we've seen the largest inflow that happened in emerging market. In fact, that amount was around $5 billion. The problem was largely everything went to China, right? So what happened was that everybody else in the emerging market did not benefit from that increase in inflow. But nonetheless, I think many things from the administration, especially from the Trump administration, is more or less priced in by the markets today. I think what is happening today is that a lot of people are overestimating that, maybe it's a time for emerging market to start rising because then you're seeing valuations as is. That has yet to be seen, and I think that's what we're all waiting for. In fact, I think there's a lot more things being played out by emerging market, largely because export-oriented countries today are being affected, especially coming from China. In fact, we've seen 100 factories in Thailand shut down last year. Indonesia, large export also affected. Lucky for the Philippines, we're a net import-oriented country, but nonetheless, what's really been surviving the Philippine equity market today has been the OFW remittances, and part of it has been we've been also benefiting from the virtual assistance, more than 1 million coming from Philippines.
Mm-hmm. And it's worth mentioning that the sell-off we're seeing, it's not just us. We're not an outlier here. It's all across the world in emerging markets as well.
In fact, you'd probably say that the Philippines is better off than everybody else. That really doesn't make it a good thing. But I know we're down 5-6% for the year in terms of the PSEI, but look at everybody else in our neighbors.
Yeah.
Everyone in a worse situation than us.
Correct. We're down 5 to 6% for the year. But if you look at the bigger picture, the PSC index first touched 6,000 in 2013. 12 years later, we are at 60.75. What are the key barriers, both domestically and globally, that are holding us back from attracting more foreign fund flows?
I always say everything's about timing. In fact, you could make the case that URC, for example, 12, 13 years ago was also at the same price level that we're seeing today. There were 60 pesos when I was first an analyst 12, 13 years ago. Today, they're still at 60 pesos. But if you look at profitability, this company has probably grown 4 or 5 billion pesos 12 years ago to 12 billion as of last year. Yes, there are challenges, and I think this is the time when we're seeing it. But again, valuations today, 9 times PE, forward. I've never seen anything like this. I'd like to think we're in a better situation than where we were before. Biggest difference is, it's the bond market that has to go down first, meaning you should expect bond yields to go down first more than the equity market. And once that starts to stabilize and go down, I think the equity market should be in a better position.
Yeah, going back into the equity market and to better our positions before investing, every investor needs to understand the company's business model, cash flow, and whether its capital expenditure budget can actually sustain growth. But beyond the fundamentals, scalability is also a huge X factor. In today's market, which companies check all of these boxes?
just before I get to the company, I just like to talk about cash flow, because I think a lot of people forget that in business today, and especially picking stocks, cash flow, yield are actually much more important than they were 10 years ago when interest rates were sitting at zero. And so for us, and that's the reason why we like DNL so much, because we feel that they already spent their capex already for their Batangas plant. They spent 8-9 billion for that entire plant in Batangas. Now they're trying to wrap up operations. In fact, they just released fourth quarter earnings, I think maybe 20-30 minutes ago. In fact, if you look at their Batangas plant in fourth quarter last year, it's actually already positive at 240 million pesos. Yes, gross margins across the board were a little bit tempered and still weak. But we think 2025, and especially coming from management, it's probably in a better situation than everything else. We think again they are positioned not just to benefit from the recovery in the consumer story in the Philippines, but even also from an export-oriented end. And actually, looking at how they've been performing from the outside, I think the export sales says it all. They've still been growing at 37% in the full year of 2024.
Yeah, okay, so that's a buy on DNL. On to other corporate developments, Edmund. There is ABS-CBN and Ayala Land. ABS-CBN is restructuring its assets by selling a large portion of its Quezon City property for 6.2 billion to partially repay bank loans and to consolidate core operations. How do you view this strategy in terms of them improving their financial stability?
Oh, definitely. I think that's a good thing for the entire ABS-CBN group, right? At least you cut down your debt. At least they got a decent price per square meter on the Quezon City property. Again, biggest challenge for them is still from the core operation business, whether they're going to be able to turn that around.
All right. Okay, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much, Edmund, for sharing your insights on the market and more with us.
All right, Mikey. Have a good day.
You too. In other news, the Senate is making preparations for the possible impeachment trial of Vice President Sara Duterte. Hannah T. has the details.
The clock is ticking on VP Sara's impeachment trial, but it won't happen soon. The Senate sets the start date on July 30, a far cry from calls to begin it as early as March. The timeline is clear. On June 2, session resumes, articles of impeachment presented and rules approved. The following day, impeachment court convenes. Senators take oath as judges. On June 4, summons issued. From June 14 to 24, pleadings will be accepted. Then pre-trial proceedings will be from June 24 to July 25. On July 28, the Senate opens session and the President delivers his SONA. The next day, newly elected senators take oath. And on July 30, the trial begins. Senate President Cheese Escudero says the schedule gives everyone time to prepare, including for the costs.
Para makapaghanda sila at gumawa na rin ng proposed budget kaugnay nun dahil baka may mga unforeseen expenses na kailangan namin paghandaan.
But nothing is final. He says the schedule can still change. Escudero signed Special Order number 2025-015, appointing the Senate Secretary as Clerk of Court. 3 offices will handle impeachment support. The Senate Legal Counsel will draft subpoenas and summons. The Deputy Secretary for Legislation will handle trial records, and the Sergeant-at-Arms will maintain security and order. But a key piece is still missing. The Senate does not have a legal team yet. Escudero says volunteers have come forward, but he wants stronger representation.
But in the meantime, the Solicitor General will stand and represent us in any litigation before any court, most likely before the Supreme Court.
Some say the Senate is moving too slowly, but Escudero disagrees.
This is not in response to any call or clamor or kahilingan ng kahit sino man, lalo na mga partisano o bias na mga tao. Ito ang trabaho po namin.
It was Senate Minority Leader Coco Pimentel who earlier requested a caucus on the impeachment. Escudero asked his colleagues and says most of them said no.
Tinanong ko yung iba hindi naman din nila gusto at busy din eh.
Some are traveling, others are not interested. Escudero has sent the proposed schedule to House Speaker Martin Romualdez and Vice President Sara Duterte. It includes plans to review the rules and bolster security and legal support. The trial date is set, but what happens next and when remains unpredictable. Hannah T., Bilyonaryo News Channel.
The U.S. and Britain are negotiating a bilateral trade agreement focusing on advanced technology. U.S. President Donald Trump announced this during a news conference with British Prime Minister Keir Starmer on Thursday. And Keir Starmer confirmed that they are working on a new economic deal. This deal has the potential to drive global innovation and boost trade, impacting markets worldwide.
Will once again demonstrate the power of our country's unique friendship. This is indeed a unique friendship. It's been many years, and I think it's only gotten stronger, and we will make sure that it stays that way. We're going to have a great trade agreement. One way or the other, we're going to end up with a very good trade agreement for both countries, and we're working on that as we speak.
Global aircraft manufacturer Boeing adopts 2 Philippine Eagles, a symbol of its commitment to nature conservation. It's also expanding its contributions to the Philippine economy. Paolo Barcelon has the details.
Meet Hiraya and Makisi, 2 Philippine Eagles adopted by Boeing. At a ceremony at the National Museum of Natural History in Manila, environment officials, members of the Philippine Eagle Foundation, and Boeing executives witnessed the formal announcement of the Eagles' names. The names were chosen by grade school students from the Ateneo de Manila University and were also decided via social media voting. Hiraya was rescued in 2024 in Bukidnon. Her left wing was amputated after she was shot. She is now under the care of the Philippine Eagle Center and will remain in captivity. Makisig, meanwhile, was rescued in 2011. He was released from the Eagle Sanctuary in 2014, but was recaptured also after being shot. The foundation says both eagles will remain in the Philippines.
Yung kasing upkeep ng eagle, food, medication, yung pag-aalaga, lahat ng dyan, it costs money. And so Boeing provides the funds to ensure that each of those 2 eagles are supported and properly cared for.
Eagle 1.
Boeing Southeast Asia President Penny Burt says their partnership with the Philippine Eagle Foundation marks a significant milestone in their global environmental efforts.
The Philippine Eagle Foundation is doing sustainability and conservation work that speaks directly to the heart of the Philippines, to the pride of the Philippines, to the future, and we love the connection with aviation.
Boeing is currently investing at least $100 million per year in the country's aviation sector, as its aircraft, from the iconic 747 to the newer 777s, are a staple of Philippine skies. Boeing also says that its partnership for environmental conservation goes hand in hand with its goal of helping to develop the Philippine aviation sector.
We see enormous opportunity for the Philippines, the future of the Philippines aviation and aerospace sector, where Boeing can make a huge contribution.
The foundation, meanwhile, also screened its docu-film To Save Our Eagles, which aims to educate people about the efforts to protect one of the most critically endangered birds in the world. Paolo Barcelon, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
And that's it for Business 360. I'm Maiki Oreta. Keep it here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel.